Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody here to the match between Beekmantown and Northeastern Clinton. This is a special match. After the regular season, both these two teams are tied for first place. So they're going to bowl a 3-game set plus total pins. The winner will become CVAC champions. As Lori Dumas finishing up the first frame on lane 6. Picks up her spare. As Northeastern is getting 4 marks from Beekmantown. So starting the second frame up on lane 5 for Northeastern Clinton is Lori Dutil. She had an open on in her first frame, and she gets 3 on her first ball. As we have Bridget up for Beekmantown on lane 6, working on a spare. Leaves the 6-7 split. These two teams played yesterday at the Bullmart. Northeastern winning 3-1 to force this playoff match. As Lori Dutil picks off 4 more, getting 7 for the frame, getting 16 after 2 frames. As Bridget will go for her split on lane 6. And it falls in the gutter, giving her 8 for the frame, and she'll have a 26 after 2. As Hillary Brink for Northeastern Clinton on lane 5 gets 6 on her first ball as she was working on a spare in the first frame. That brings up Michelle Seymour for Beekmantown on lane 6. As she crossed over, leaving the 5 pin as Michelle was working on a spare in the first frame. And Hillary pulls it. She misses all the pins, getting 6 for the frame, giving her a 22 after 2. And I'll bring up Jess Charland for Northeastern Clinton, working on a spare. As Michelle Seymour picks up her 5 pin, getting the first mark for this in the second frame for Beekmantown, as Jess Charland leaves the 4, 7, 8, 10 split as she was working on a spare. As Cammie for Beekmantown gets 7 on her first ball. As Jess Charland gets out 1 pin, getting 7 for the frame, giving her a 23 after 2. As Cammie Bell for Beekmantown gets 2, getting 9 for the frame, giving her, I believe, an 18 after 2. As Paula Chapman working on a strike, gets, I believe, 7 on her first ball. And that brings up Danielle Renadette for Beekmantown on lane 6. That's Paula going for a spare, working on a strike. And she gets 2, giving her 9 for the frame, giving her a 28 after 2. As Danielle working on a spare. Spares up on the second frame, getting the second Beekmantown mark of the frame. That brings up the anchor ladies for both sides, Lori Dumas for Northeastern and Carrie Ireland for Beekmantown. As Lori Dumas leaves the 3-6 as she was working on a spare, and Carrie Ireland up on lane 6 working on a strike, her first ball, and leaves the 4 pin. Lori Dumas going for 2-pin spare and converts, getting the lone mark in that frame for Northeastern, and that gives them 9 marks after 2 frames. As Carrie Ireland goes for her 4-pin and converts, giving her a 20 in the first frame. As Northeastern after 2 frames has a 9-7 lead in marks. As Bridget for Beekmantown on lane 5 strikes to start their 3rd frame. And up for Northeastern on lane 6 is Lori Dutil. As she drops it, getting 3 on her first ball. And that brings up Michelle Seymour for Beekmantown on lane 5. as she leaves the 5 pin. Yes, Lori Dutil playing for her spare. We'll get 3 more, getting 6 for the frame, giving her a 22 after 3. As Michelle Seymour misses the 5 pin, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 47 after 3. And up for Northeastern is Hillary Brink, as she gets 3 on her first ball. And that brings up Cammie Bell for Beekmantown on lane 5. She leaves the 6, 9, 10, as this match is being played here at Plattsburgh Lanes, which is a neutral site, since Northeastern plays at the Bowl Mark and Beekmantown plays at North Bowl. As Hillary goes for her spare and leaves just the 9 pin, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 31 after 3. And Cammie Bell goes for her spare and converts. I'll bring up Jess Charlin for Northeastern Clinton. She gets 9 on her first ball, leaving just a 3 pin. As that brings up Danielle Renadette for Beekmantown, getting 3 on her first ball, as she was working on a strike, or working on a spare, excuse me. Jess Charlin will convert her spare, getting the first mark for Northeastern here in the 3rd frame. So that'll bring up Paula Chapman for Northeastern, as Danielle goes for her spare. She gets 6 more, getting 9 for the frame, giving her probably a 40 or so. Paula Chapman gets 4 on her first ball, leaving the 1, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. As brings up.
We have a Ford Ranger Sport outside, license plate 89.
As Carrie Ireland Carrie Ireland. She leaves the 3-10 split. As Paul Chapman goes for a spare. She gets 4 more, getting 8 for the frame, giving her 36 after 3 frames. As Carrie Ireland goes for her baby split, and she misses them all, getting 8 for the frame, getting her a 46 after 3. As Lori Dumas for Northeastern puts one right in the pocket, carries all 10 to finish off the Northeastern 3rd. So both teams get 2 marks that frame. Beekmantown lost one because they didn't get enough count on a spare. So Northeastern has gained about 10 pins or so. As Lori Dutil for Northeastern leaves the 1, 5, 8, 9, 10. And leadoff lady for Beekmantown is Bridget Valley, and she leaves, working on a strike, she leaves the 10 pin. As Lori Dutil goes for a spare, and she takes out 3 of them, getting 8 for the frame, giving her a 30 after 4. As Bridget goes for a spare, and she just misses the 10 pin, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 54 after 4. As Hillary Brink on lane 5 for Northeastern Clinton gets a break, leaving just the head pin. As it brings up Michelle Seymour on lane 6 on an open, as she leaves the 1-3 spare. As Hillary Brink picks up her spare on lane 5 to get the Northeastern 4th frame underway. As Michelle Seymour will pick up her spare on lane 6, and now bring up Jess Charlin for Northeastern on lane 5, working on a spare. As she leaves just the 10 pin, getting 9 on her first ball. And that brings up Cammie Bell for Beekmantown on lane 6. She gets 8 on her first ball, and she was working on a spare. As Jess goes for her spare and converts the 10-pin, getting Northeastern's second mark of the frame. As this match is just between the girls today. The boys are all finished. Finishing, I believe, either in 3rd or 4th place. As Cami chops the head pin off the 2-pin, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 45 after 4. As Paula Chapman for Northeastern goes over to the Brooklyn, leaving just the 3-pin. As up for Beekmantown is Danielle. She gets 7 on her first ball. As Paul Chapman goes for a 3-pin on lane 5. As she misses to the left, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 45 after 4. As Danielle goes for her spare. And she chops the 2-pin, getting 8 for the frame, giving her a 48 after 4. And brings up Lori Dumas in lane 5, working on a strike. And she doubles up for Northeastern Clinton. They get the first double of the day for both teams. As Northeastern has a good frame, getting 4 marks that frame. That brings up Carrie Ireland for Beekmantown. As she knocks down all 10 to finish off the Beekmantown 4th frame. That brings up the leadoff bowlers for both teams. Bridget Valley on lane 5 for Beekmantown. She goes across over to Brooklyn, leaving the 5-9. And Lori Duto, who's struggling so far, throws a good ball there, leaving just the 5-pin. As this place is starting to fill up with spectators from both schools. Coming to see who wins today. As Bridget goes for her spare. And she converts the spare. As Lori Duto will try to do the same thing on lane 6. And Kishi gets her first spare of the game to start off the Northeastern 5th. That brings up Michelle Seymour on lane 5, working on a spare. And she strikes. She gets her first strike of the game to keep the 5th frame going. And Hillary Brink leaving just the 3-pin. And up on lane 5 is Cami Bell for Beekmantown. On an open. As she comes up a little light in the pocket, leaving just the 5-pin. As Hillary Brink will go for a 3-pin spare. And converts. Get her second mark on her own, the second mark to start off the 5th frame for Northeastern Clinton. As Cami Bell will go for a 5-pin. And she will miss it to the left, and that brings up Jess Charlin for Northeastern Clinton on lane 6, working on a spare. Getting 8 on her first ball. And that brings up Danielle for Beekmantown on lane 5. As she crosses over to Brooklyn, leaving the 6, the 3, the 3, 5, 6. As Jess Charlin goes for a spare and converts. So Northeastern has so far with 3 bowlers here in the 5th frame, all have marks. As Danielle picks up her spare, and that brings up Paula Chapman for Northeastern Clinton on an open. And puts one in the pocket, leaving just the 10-pin. As up for Beekmantown is Carrie Ireland. Puts one right in the pocket and doubles up for Beekmantown, who has a good frame, getting 5 marks in that frame. As Paul Chapman will go for a 10-pin on lane 6. And she'll miss it to the left. I'll bring up the The anchor person for Northeastern, which is Lori Dumas. Lori Dumas goes over to the Brooklyn and wiggles the 5-pin, getting 9 on her first ball as she was on a double. And that brings up leadoff bowler for Northeastern Clinton, Lori Dutil on lane 5. She drops one, getting 5 on her first ball, saving her mark.
Chad, phone call.
As Lori Dumas picks up the 5-pin, Northeastern Clinton gets 4 marks in the 5th frame to keep up with Beekmantown. As Lori Dutil goes for a spare and leaves just the 2-pin, getting 9 for the frame. As Bridget for Beekmantown gets 6 on her first ball. She was also working on a spare. As Hillary Brink for Northeastern crosses over and carries out all 10 to get Northeastern's first mark of the 6th frame. Yeah, she was working on a spare. And as Bridget, goes for a spare, and she gets 3 on her second ball. As Jess Charlin crosses over to Brooklyn and strikes for Northeastern. And that brings up Michelle Seymour for Beekmantown on lane 6, working on a strike. And she leaves the 6-7 split. And Paula Chapman for Northeastern misses the head pin to the left, getting 7 on her first ball. As Michelle goes for a spare. Make sure she tries to get 1 for the team, but she does not get any. Getting 8 for the frame, giving her a 93 after 6. As Paula Chapman goes for a spare. Misses it to the left, getting 8 for the frame, giving her a 62 after 6. That brings up Cammie Bell for Beekmantown, as she gets 8 on her first ball as she was on an open. And Lori Dumas working on a spare for Northeastern. Crosses over the Brooklyn, leaving just the 9-pin. She gets 9 on her first ball. As Cammie Bell goes for a spare and converts to get Beekmantown's first mark of the 6th frame. As Lori Dumas goes for a 9-pin. And she just misses it to the right, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 115 after 6. As it brings up Danielle for Beekmantown, and she strikes as she was working on a spare. And that'll bring up on lane 6, Carrie Ireland for Beekmantown, working on a double. And on lane 5 will be Bridget Valley for Beekmantown on an open. Carrie Ireland on a double. Tries to go over to the Brooklyn. Misses the head pin, getting 7 on her first ball. Bridget leaves the 3-9-10 split. As Carrie Ireland will go for a spare. And she converts. So it's 3 marks for Beekmantown that frame and 2 for Northeastern. So this match is about dead even right now so far. As Bridget gets 2, getting 9 for the frame. That brings up Lori Dutil on lane 6 on an open. Hits the head pin dead on, leaving the 4-7 spare. And up for Beekmantown is Michelle Seymour. And she leaves the 4-6-10 split. She is on an open. Lori Dutail gets 1 for 9 in the frame. And she's got a 63 after 7. Michelle Seymour misses all 3, as she'll have 100 after 7 frames. That brings up Hillary Brink. Working on a strike, gets 7 on her first ball. After 6 frames, it's Northeastern Clinton with 21 marks and Beekmantown with 18. So that's a 30-pin difference. And Cammie Bell for Beekmantown is on a spare. She leaves double pinochle, the 4, 6, 7, 10. As Hillary Brink goes for her spare. And she converts, getting the first mark for Northeastern Clinton in the 7th frame. She has 90 after 6 on a spare. Cammie will try to get 2, and she does, getting 8 for the frame. And that brings up Jessica Charlin on a strike, getting 7 on her first ball, leaving the 1, 2, 8. And Danielle up for Beekmantown. Comes up a little light in the pocket, leaving just the 5-pin as she was on a strike. As Jess Charlin will try to get the second mark of the frame for Northeastern Clinton. And takes out the 1, 2, leaving the 8, getting her 9 for the frame, giving her a 108 after 7. Danielle goes for a 5-pin and converts, getting Beekmantown's first mark of the game, or first mark of the frame, excuse me. And Paula Chapman up for Northeastern Clinton, as she leaves the 1, 3, 6. As Paula's struggling so far in this first game. And Carrie Ireland for Beekmantown puts it right in the pocket and carries all 10, as she was working on a spare. So she has a 113, I believe, after 6 frames, as she is on a strike. As Paula Chapman goes for a spare, and it slides by, getting 7 for the frame. As Lori Dumas will finish up the 7th frame for Northeastern Clinton. She is on an open. And she's going to cross over to the Brooklyn, leaving just the 3-pin. Lori Dutail starting off the 8th frame for Northeastern Clinton. She leaves the 1, 3, 5. And Lori Dumas finishing up the frame. Will spare to get 2 marks for Northeastern Clinton. So after 7 frames, it's 23 to 20. So Northeastern is up by 30 pins. Roughly 30 pins, that is. As Lori Dutail goes for a spare, and she drops it, getting 0 on her second ball. As Danielle leaves just the 5-pin to start off Beekmantown's 8th frame. And that brings up Hillary Brink on a spare for Northeastern Clinton. And she crossed over to Brooklyn, leaving just the 7-pin. As the 9-pin, excuse me, fell late. As Bridget will go for a spare. And she will convert the 5-pin to start off Beekmantown's 8th frame, as Hillary Brink will try to go for a 7-pin. And just misses. She has a 118 after 8 frames. And Michelle Seymour for Beekmantown leaves the 6-10 on lane 6. As Jess Charlin on an open for Northeastern Clinton. Cross over to the Brooklyn and carries all 10. They get the first mark in the Northeastern 8th frame. As Michelle goes for her spare, and she converts. Get the second mark of the frame for Beekmantown, as Paula Chapman, struggling to find the head pin, leaves the 1, 3, 6, 9. As Cammie on an open for Beekmantown. Leaves the 1-2-9. Paul Chapman goes for a spare. Takes out 2. Getting 8 for the frame as she has a 77 after 8 frames. Cammie goes for a spare and converts. So Beekmantown throwing a good 8 frames so far, as Lori Dumas will finish up Northeastern as she leaves the 5-pin. That brings up Danielle for Beekmantown on lane 6, and she leaves the 4-7 spare. And Lori Dumas goes for a 5-pin and converts. So a big spare for Northeastern Clinton as they get 2 marks that frame. As Danielle picks up her spare. So Beekmantown can possibly get 6 marks this frame if Carrie Ireland can strike. On lane 5 is Bridget on a spare. Crossed over to Brooklyn, leaving the 3-9 spare, double wood. Carrie Ireland bounces 1, and she leaves the 6-10 spare. She spares up, that'll give 5 marks for Beekmantown. And if she spares up, I do believe this game will be dead even. As Danielle goes for a spare. And converts it. She got it the hard way as Carrie Ireland goes for a spare and converts. So after 8 frames, it's 25 marks apiece for both squads. As we have a tie game going into the 9th frame. And on lane 5 is Michelle Seymour on a spare. Getting 7 on her first ball, leaving the 1-3-8. As Lori Dutil missed the head pin to the right, getting 7 on her first ball, leaving the 1-2-4. As Michelle Seymour converts her spare. As Lori Dutil will try to do the same. And she leaves just a head pin, getting 9 for the frame. That brings up Cammie Bell for Beekmantown on a spare. As she strikes. That's Hillary Brink for Northeastern Clinton. Gets 3 on her first ball. As Beekmantown is starting to pull away these last couple frames. As Danielle for Beekmantown leaves the 1-2-8. Getting 7 on her first ball. As Hillary Brink will go for her spare. She gets 8 for the frame, leaving a 5-9. Giving her a 126 after 9. As Danielle goes for her spare. As she gets 1. And up for Northeastern is Jess Charlin, who can throw a big strike here. As she gets 7 on her first ball, leaving the 1-2-8. Every pin and every mark counts right now. As Carrie Ireland on a spare. Comes up light on the head pin, leaving the 2-5. As Jess Charlin goes for a spare, and she gets the front 2, leaving the 8 pin, getting 9 for the frame. Giving her a 136 after 9. As Carrie Ireland, big spare right here. And she converts. So Beekmantown gets 4 marks that frame, and the best Northeastern can do is at least 2. As Paul Chapman leaves the 6-7-10 split. As Beekmantown will go into the 10th frame ahead of Northeastern. As Paul misses all three, getting 7 for the frame. That brings up Lori Dumas for Northeastern. Lori Dumas crosses over, leaving just the 5-pin. Yeah, this is a big spare for Northeastern, at least go in the 10th frame with something. As Lori Dumas picks up her spare to finish off the 9th frame. So Beekmantown is be up about 30 pins going into the 10th. So we're ready to start the 10th frame. And Bridget will start the 10th frame for Beekmantown on a spare in lane 6. She puts right in the pocket and gets a strike. As Lori Dutil gets 6 on her first ball. Bridget getting ready to throw her second ball of the frame on a strike. And leaves the 6-10, getting 8. Lori Dutil goes for a spare and gets 2 of them, getting her 8, giving her an 86, which is quite a few pins under her average. As Hillary Brink gets 6 on her first ball. As Bridget picks up her spare, finishing with a 146. As Hillary will try to pick up her spare on lane 5. Every pin counts right now as it is a 3-game total series. As Hillary gets 2, getting 8 for the frame. As Michelle Seymour leaves the 5-pin. Jess Charlin leaves the 128 again. As it appears that Beekmantown will have this first game. Michelle Seymour picks up her 5-pin. As Jess misses all 3, giving her a 143. Michelle gets 9 on her field ball, giving her a 155. As Paula Chapman for Northeastern crosses over to the Brooklyn, getting a strike. Paula Chapman getting ready to throw her second ball. Here in the 10th frame. And she gets 9, leaving just a 9-pin. And Cami Bell throws a good ball and doubles up for Beekmantown. Paula Chapman goes for her spare and she misses, getting 19 for the frame, giving her a 103 game, which is under her average as well. Cami Bell gets 8 on her Second ball in the 10th. Lori Dumas throws a strike for Northeastern, as every pin counts, of course. As Cammie picks up her spare, getting 20 for the frame, giving her a 146 game. Lori Dumas throwing her second ball. Leaves a 3-6. As Beekmantown will take this first game. Just a matter by how much. As Danielle gets 7 on her first ball. Lori Dumas picks up her spare, giving her a 193 game, which is above her average. Danielle picks up her spare for Beekmantown, and she'll throw a field ball. As Danielle strikes on her field ball, getting 20 for the frame, giving her a 151. As Carrie Ireland will finish up this first game. On a spare, leaves just the 5-pin. She goes for a 5-pin and converts. As if Carrie Ireland spares up, or throws a strike in her second, and her field ball in the 10th, they will win this game by 90 pins, I believe. As she finishes up with a 190 game, which is above her average. And the Beekmantown girls have taken this first game by 86 pins. And they'll get ready to throw their second one. They're ready to start the second game. As Bridget for Beekmantown gets 9 on her first ball. And Lori Dutil also gets 9 on her first ball, leaving the 10-pin. As I was mistaken to begin with, this is not a game thing. This is 3 games, total pins wins. So Northeastern is down by 86 pins, and they have to make those 2 up. Have to make that 86 pins up. As Bridget spares to start the first frame of the second game, and Lori Dutil also spares to start the second game. As Michelle Seymour gets 7 on her first ball, and Hillary goes over to Brooklyn, crossing over, getting a strike. Shot, Hill. As Michelle Seymour going after her 4-pin spare, and she leaves the head pin, getting 9 for the frame. That's just Charlene for Northeastern. Crossing over to Brooklyn, striking for Northeastern.
Let's go now.
So a good start to the second game for Northeastern Clinton.
Shot, Jess.
And brings up Cammie Bell for Beekmantown leaving a solid 10 pin. That's Paula Chapman for Northeastern. Goes over to Brooklyn and carries all 10. So very good start for Northeastern Clinton this second game, as they need a couple big games here. As Cami Bell goes for a 10 pin, she'll miss it to the left, getting 9 for the frame. Then I'll bring up Lori Dumas to finish off the first frame. And she comes up a little light, leaving just the 2 pin. And it brings up. That brings up Danielle for Beekmantown. She gets 5 on her first ball, leaving the 1, 2, 4, 7, 9. And Lori Dumas will go for her spare. And she will. As Lori Dumas picks up her spare.
And Chris Welch is being paged, so we're going to struggle along without him. I'll try to get some last names on some of these Beekmantown girls. That was Danielle. Now in lane 6, it's Bridget rolling her second frame. Leaves a 10 pin. Oh, excuse me, that's Carrie completing. And Bridget will be starting over here, I guess. And she gets the strike. So that was Bridget getting a strike to go with her spare. She's the only one who marked in the first frame, but Carrie here is looking to do the same. She puts it in the alley, so only one mark for Beekmantown in the first frame. Now it's Shelley for Beekmantown, and for Northeastern, Lori Dutil working on a spare in the second frame. So she got 7 on her first ball. And that'll bring up Shelley. Working on an open, and she gets a spare here in the second. Crowded quarters here at Plattsburgh Lanes. As Chris Welch said, as Dutil picks up 2 to give her a 9. This is a neutral site, and it looks like Chris is back to take it away.
And up for Northeastern is Hillary Brink. She gets three pins on her first ball on a strike. And after one frame, Northeastern has 9 marks to Beekmantown's 1. And Cami Bell spares up for Beekmantown as they've started off the second frame with 3 marks. As Hillary will go for her spare in lane 6. And picks up her spare to get the first mark for Northeastern Clinton here in the 6th frame. As Danielle for Beekmantown strikes. She was on an open, and Jess Charlin on a strike for Northeastern Clinton. Gets 8 on her first ball, leaving the 1-3 spare. As brings up Carrie Ireland. Comes up a little light in the head pin, leaving the 7 pin. As Jess will go for her spare. And looks good. And she converts. They get Northeastern's second mark. As Paula Chapman working on a strike. Will throw her first ball in the second frame. As Carrie Ireland spares up. So Beekmantown comes back with 5 marks that frame. As Northeastern Clinton, Paula Chapman. Comes up a little light, leaving the 2, 4, 5. As Paul Chapman goes for her spare. takes out the 2-5, leaving the 4, getting 9 for the frame. She has a 28 after 2. Brings up Lori Dumas for Northeastern Clinton on a spare.
Come on, Lori.
She throws her ball. She comes up a little heavy, but she gets a break, leaving just a 6-pin. As Lori Dutil will start off the 3rd frame. She's working on an open. And strikes for Northeastern Clinton to get her first strike of the game. And Lori Dumas spares up to finish off 2nd frame as Northeastern gets 3 marks that frame. As Hillary Brink gets 5 on her first ball. She was working on a spare. So after 2 frames, it's 12-6 in favor of Northeastern Clinton. So Northeastern Clinton's up 60 pins so far after 2 frames. As Bridget on a strike leaves the 6, 7, 10. And Hillary will go for her spare. And she'll pick off 3 of them, getting 8 for the frame, giving her 43 after 3.
Hang in there, Hill. Good try.
As Bridget ball falls in the gutter, getting 7 for the frame. As Jess Charlin gets 8 on her first ball, she's on a spare. That brings up Michelle Seymour working on a spare. On lane 6, starting the 3rd frame. Crosses over the Brooklyn and carries out a strike, getting Beekmantown's first mark of the 3rd frame. And Jess Charlin converts her 2-4 spare for her 3rd mark in a row. That brings up Cammie Bell on a spare. Misled pin to the right, leaving the 1-2 spare. And brings up Paula Chapman for Northeastern Clinton on an open. Crosses over, leaves the 6-10 spare. As Cammie goes for her spare. And she converts. Now to bring up Danielle for Beekmantown as Paula Chapman will go for her spare and she'll miss it to the left. Getting 8 for the frame, giving her a 36 after 3.
Paula.
Danielle comes up light in the pocket, leaving the 2-5 spare. And Lori Dumas finishing off the 3rd frame for Northeastern Clinton. Her ball comes up heavy. She leaves the 3-6-10.
Lori, out on the lane. Right at your feet right now. Get it out of the lane. You're gonna take a little bit of that off. Cross out.
As Danielle chops the 5-pin from the 2, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 34 after 3. And Lori Dumas picks up her spare, so Northeastern Clinton gets 3 marks that frame. As Carrie Ireland crosses over, leaving the 6-9-10.
Good start, ladies. 1 ball at a time. Let's go. We can bring this back.
As Carrie goes for her spare and converts. So the 3rd frame, both teams get 3 marks. So Northeastern Clinton is still up by 6. And Bridget starting off the 4th frame for Beekmantown, leaves the 6-10 spare. And for Northeastern is Lori Dutil on a strike, starting the 4th frame. And she drops her ball, but she gets 9, leaving just a head pin.
Relax, Lori, right straight through now. You can do it.
As Bridget goes for her spare, and she'll miss it to the left, getting 8 for the frame. Giving her a 52 after 4. As Lori Dutail goes for the head pin and converts. Get the start off the 4th frame for Northeastern Clinton. As Michelle Seymour doubles up for Beekmantown. That brings up Hillary Brink for Northeastern Clinton on lane 6. She comes up a little light, getting the 2-4-5. And up for Beekmantown is Cammie Bell. As she leaves the 1-2-9. And Hillary goes for her spare on lane 6. And she takes off the 5-pin, getting 8 for the frame. Getting her a 51 after 4. Cammie goes for her spare. And spares up for Beekmantown. And up for Northeastern is Jess Charland on a spare. She leaves the 1-2-8. As Danielle for Beekmantown leaves the 4-7. As Jess will go for her spare. And she takes out 2 pins, leaving the head pin, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 64 after 4. As Danielle gets 9 for the frame, and I'll bring up Paula Chapman for Northeastern Clinton. As her ball will come up a little light, leaving the 2-4-5. And finishing off the 4th frame is Carrie Ireland, who leaves the 6-7 split. No matter who wins this game today, both girls teams have had tremendous seasons, finishing 42-14. Paula Chapman will pick up her spare. So I was saying both teams finished the season really well. And it all comes down till today as Carrie Ireland tries to at least get 1, and she does, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 53 after 4. And Lori Dumas drops it and comes up a little light in the pocket, leaving the 4-5 split. As Beekmantown's gotten 3 marks that frame. Lori Dumas, Northeastern will also have 3 marks. She'll get 1, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 64 after 4. So Northeastern's marks have been cut to 5, and that bring up Lori Dutail for Northeastern Clinton and Bridget Valley for Beekmantown. Lori Dutail, and she strikes, put one in the ball right in the pocket to start off the Northeastern 5th. And Bridget comes up a little heavy, leaving the 6-10. And she was on an open. And up for Northeastern's Hillary Brink on an open. Ball crosses over, leaving just the 5-pin.
Same shot, pick that up, Hill.
Bridget goes for her spare. And the ball falls in the gutter, getting her 8 for the frame. Giving her a 60 after 5. And Hillary Brink goes for the 5-pin. And she'll just... for 5 frames. And Michelle Seymour throws the first triple of the day for Beekmantown. As Jess Charlotte 7 on her first ball, leaving the 1-3-5. And up for Beekmantown is Cammie Bell. Crosses over and strikes for Beekmantown. For her spare. And Leaves the 5-pin. Beekmantown is Danielle Renadette, as she also strikes. Brings up Paula Chapman for Northeastern Clinton on a spare, as her ball will miss the head pin, getting 4 on her first ball. And Carrie Ireland will finish off the 5th frame. Her ball comes heavy, leaving just the 6 pin. Paula Chapman goes for her spare. And leaves the 5 pin. Getting 9 for the frame. As Carrie Ireland picks up her spare. Loomis buries one in the pocket. So Northeastern gets 2 marks, but they lost one, so they'll only have 1. So it's 17 marks for Beekmantown and 18 marks for Northeastern. So it's down to about a 10-pin lead for Northeastern Clinton. As Lori Dutil on a strike drops the ball in the lane, getting 3 on her first ball.
Draw that line, Lori. Draw that line. Right straight over. Let's go.
Here's Danielle, or Bridget, excuse me, leaves the 3-10 split. As Lori drops one in the gutter. So she gets 3 for the frame, giving her an 82 after 6.
A lot of game left, Lori. A lot of game left.
Danielle drops it in the gutter, getting 8 for the frame, giving her a 68 after 6. Brings up Hillary Brink for Northeastern Clinton. As Michelle Seymour gets 9. Down to start the 6th frame.
Come on, Jess. Square foot, pull it right to your mark. Now you can do it. Come on. You can do it. Come on.
Jess picks up her spare, getting the first mark for Northeastern Clinton here in the 6th frame.
Let's go. Paula, let's go now. Start it all over again, Paula. Come on.
Cammie on a strike. Doubles up for Beekmantown. Paula Chapman on an open. Your ball will miss the head pin, leaving the 1-3-9.
Mark, Paula. Come on now.
Danielle also doubles up for Beekmantown. So Paula Chapman will go for her spare. As Paula will miss her spare to the right. Getting 7 for the frame. I'll bring up the anchor bowlers for both teams. Carrie Ireland on lane 5 and Lori Dumas on lane 6. As Carrie Ireland strikes. As does Lori Dumas.
Come on, guys. Let's go. Let's go. Let's make a run right now. Come on.
So after 6 frames, it's 23 for Beekmantown and 20 for Northeastern. So Beekmantown is pulled to about a 30-pin lead as Lori Dutil starts off the 7th frame with a strike. As Bridget for Beekmantown throws her first ball. And she carries the Brooklyn. As Hillary Brink drops one in the gutter for her first ball. As Michelle Seymour working on a spare. Strikes for Beekmantown. As Hillary gets 5 on her second ball, giving her a 72 after 7. Just Charlotte on a spare for Northeastern. Perry's one in the pocket, getting a strike. As Cammy Bell triples up for Beekmantown. Paula Chapman up for Northeastern Clinton. Crossover, leaving just the 10-pin. Danielle working on a double. Leaves the 10-pin as well.
That's better, Paula.
Paula just misses the 10-pin. And Danielle picks up the 10-pin for Beekmantown. Beekmantown starting to pull away here in this second game. As Lori Dumas on a double. Leaves just the 5-pin. Here Ireland gets 6 on her first ball. Lori Dumas picks up her spare. So it's 3 marks for Northeastern Clinton. As Carey gets 2 more, getting 8 for the frame, giving her a 99 after 7. So Beekmantown gets 5 marks that frame, Northeastern Clinton gets 3. So it's Beekmantown's up by about 50 pins or so. As Bridget on a strike. It's 8 on her first ball. And Lori Dutil gets 9 on her first ball, leaving just the 8-pin. As Bridget squares up to start the 8th frame for Beekmantown. And Lori Dutil misses her spare to the left, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 110. As Michelle Seymour leaves just a 10-pin. She was on a strike. And Hillary Brink for Northeastern gets the 4-6-7 split. As Michelle Seymour misses a 10-pin, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 156 after 8 frames. As Hillary Brink misses all 3 pins. She has a 79 after 8 frames. As Cammy Bell leaves the 2-4-5 as she was on a triple. Jess Charlin on a strike.
Nothing hurt yet, Jess. Nothing hurt.
Gets 3 on her first ball. As Cammy picks off one, getting 8 for the frame. And Jess Charlin also gets 8 for the frame. So neither team right now in this frame, they're not marking very well. As Danielle leaves a 10 pin. This brings up Paula Chapman for Northeastern Clinton on lane 6. And she leaves a solid 9 pin.
Nice shot, Paula. A little bit more speed or a little bit further left, Paula.
As Danielle picks off the 10 pin, getting Beekmantown's second mark of the frame. As Paula Chapman misses her spare. As Carrie Ireland gets 8 on her first ball. She was on an open. She leaves a 6-10 spare, and Lori Dumas on a spare. Crosses over, leaves just a 3 pin, getting 9 on her first ball. As Carrie Ireland picks up her spare, so that's 3 more marks for Beekmantown. And Lori Dumas picks up her spare, getting Northeastern's first mark of the frame.
Come on, Lori. Come on, Lori.
So Beekmantown now has a 70 pin lead or so going into the 9th frame, as Lori Dutil leaves just the 3 pin. And Bridget Valley on a spare leaves the 6-7-10 split. Lori Dutil just misses her spare to the right, getting 9 for the frame. As Bridget goes for her spare, and she drops in the gutter, getting 7 for the frame, giving her a 112. Brings up Hillary Brink for Northeastern Clinton on an open, getting 7 on her first ball. Up for Beekmantown is Michelle Seymour. She leaves a 4 pin. Yes, Hillary Brink drops one in the gutter, getting 7 for the frame, giving her an 86 after 9. As Michelle Seymour will go for her spare. And converts, getting the first mark for Beekmantown in that 9th frame. That's Jess Charlin on an open. Gets 8 on her first ball, leaving the 1-3 spare. As Cammie Bell for Beekmantown leaves the 6-9-10 spare. As she was also on an open.
Hang on.
So Jess Charlin gets 9 for the frame, giving her a 128 after 9.
Come on.
As Cammie picks up her spare, getting the second mark for Beekmantown in the 9th frame. Up for Northeastern is Paula Chapman. Crosses over to the Brooklyn and leaves just the 5 pin. And up for Beekmantown is Danielle Renadette. As she hits the head pin dead on, leaving just the 9 pin. As Paula Chapman spares up for Northeastern Clinton, getting their first mark of the 9th frame. And Danielle will miss her spare to the left, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 139 after 9. Brings up Lori Dumas for Northeastern Clinton. Hit. Getting 6 on her first ball. She was working on a spare, leaving the 3, 6, 9, 10. And up for Beekmantown is Carrie Ireland. On a spare, gets 9, leaving just the 4 pin.
Come on, Laura.
As Lori Dumas gets 3 out of the 4, leaving the 10 pin, giving her a 149 after 9. As Carrie Ireland will pick up her spare. So Beekmantown pulls ahead by 2 more marks as they're now up by about 90 pins going into the last frame of the second game.
Come on, Lori!
As Bridget gets 8 on her first ball to start the 10th frame. And Lori Dutil will start the 10th frame for Northeastern Clinton. She gets 5 on her first ball. Every pin counts since this is a 3-game total pins match. Northeastern Clinton is trying to get as many pins as possible to go into the last game. As Bridget spares, starts off the 10th frame with a spare for Beekmantown. And Lori Dutil gets 3 more on her second ball, giving her a 127. As Bridget will throw her fill ball here in the 10th frame. Getting 8, giving her a 130 game. As Hillary Brink leaves the solid 10 pin in her 10th frame. As Hillary goes for her 10 pin. And picks it up. Get the first mark for Northeastern Clinton here in the 10th frame. As Michelle Seymour leaves just the 5 pin. Start her 10th frame. As Hillary throwing her fill ball. Gets 3 pins on her fill ball, giving her a 99 game. As Michelle picks up her spare, she'll get a fill ball here in the 10th frame. Michelle throws her fill ball, gets 9, giving her a 194 game. As Jess Charlin gets 8 on her first ball. She's on an open. Jess Charlin will try to pick up her spare for Northeastern Clinton on lane 6. And converts. And brings up Cammie Bell for Beekmantown on lane 5. Crosses over, leaving the 3-9 double wood. Jess Charlin throws her fill ball, getting 7, giving her a 145 game. As Cammie goes for her spare and leaves the back pin, getting 9, giving her a 174. Brings up Danielle Renadette for Beekmantown on lane 5. She puts one right in the pocket, getting all 10. And Paula Chapman for Northeastern Clinton. Also buried one in the pocket, getting all 10. As Danielle gets 7 on her second ball, leaving the 4-5-7. Danielle goes for her spare for Beekmantown, and she gets 2 of them, giving her 19 for the frame, giving her a 158 game. That's Paula Chapman throwing her second ball, crosses over, and leaves the 6 pin. As Carrie Ireland goes over to Brooklyn, getting a strike. Paula Chapman misses her 6 pin, getting 19 for the frame, giving her a 123. As Carrie Ireland leaves a solid 10 pin. As Lori Dumas crosses over, leaving the 6-9 spare. As Beekmantown will win this game, or take this game by about 100 pins. As Carrie Ireland spares for Beekmantown, finishing them off with a 158. As Lori Dumas spares for Northeastern Clinton.
Good job over there.
Come on, Lori.
As Lori Dumas finishes out with a strike, giving her a 176 game. So Beekmantown has, after this game, they have beaten Northeastern Clinton in this game by 100 pins exactly, I do believe, or 101 or somewhere in that neighborhood. So the Beekmantown Eagle girls team will have a 190 pin lead or so going into the last game. So Northeastern Clinton will have to throw a big last game.
Come on, Lori.
We're ready to start the third game. And the final game between these two teams before sectionals, as Bridget Valley for Beekmantown gets 3 on her first ball, as the Beekmantown Eagles girls team has a 187 pin lead going into this last game, as Lori Duto gets 2. So Northeastern Clinton's got to have a real big last game. As Bridget goes for her spare. And she leaves the 9 pin, getting 9 for the frame. As Lori Duto gets 8 for the frame. No matter what happens with this last game here, both these two schools have had tremendous seasons. As Michelle Seymour leaves just the 5 pin. And Hillary Brink leaves just the 3 pin. This will be the final time for some of these girls, as for Lori Dumas and Jess Charlin, who are seniors. This is their last regular season game before sectionals, which are this Saturday. As Michelle Seymour spares up, as these two teams are the favorites in sectionals, along with Plattsburgh and Peru, as Hillary Brink spares for Northeastern to get them started. So one of these two teams could possibly win sectionals this weekend, as Cammie Bell gets 5 on her first ball, leaving the 1-2-4-7-9. And Jess Charlin for Northeastern Clinton. Crosses over, strikes for Northeastern Clinton.
Same thing, Paula. Same thing. He's pissed. Let's go.
As Cammie Bell picks up her spare. As Paula Chapman for Northeastern Clinton gets 6 on her first ball, leaving the 1-2-5-9. Brings up Danielle for Beekmantown. And her first ball's in the pocket. She leaves a solid 7-pin. Paula Chapman
Get up now. Nice shot.
picks up her spare. And I'll bring up Lori Dumas for Northeastern. Danielle goes for her 7-pin on lane 5 and picks it up. And Lori Dumas puts the ball right in the pocket, leaving just the 7-pin. And the pin comes out late, tripping the 5. And Carrie Ireland for Beekmantown puts her ball in the pocket, and she strikes. As Lori Dumas just missed their spare. So Beekmantown gets 4 marks first frame, Northeastern's 3. But after 1 frame, it's 7-4 Northeastern in marks. Since they are getting 40 pins from Beekmantown. And brings up Lori Dutil for Northeastern Clinton. She gets 5 on her first ball. And starting off the second frame for Beekmantown is Bridget, leaving the 6-10 spare. Lori Dutil goes for her spare. And she leaves the 5-pin, getting 9 for the frame. As Bridget drops the ball in the gutter, getting 8 for the frame, giving her a 17 after 2. And up for Northeastern is Hillary Brink, and she strikes for Northeastern Clinton. They start their second frame. And brings up Michelle Seymour for Beekmantown as she leaves the 5-pin. Up for Northeastern is Jess Charlin on a strike as she leaves the 1-3-6-9. As Michelle Seymour goes for her 5-pin. And converts, getting Beekmantown's first mark of the frame. As Jess Charlin spares for Northeastern Clinton. That brings up Cammie Bell for Beekmantown on lane 6 on a spare. As she leaves the solid 10-pin. And up for Northeastern is Paula Chapman as she leaves the 4-pin. As Cammie Bell missed her spare to the left, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 28 after 2. Paula Chapman goes for her 4-pin, excuse me. And Paula converts. Sparing up for Northeastern Clinton, up for Beekmantown is Danielle Renadette. As she leaves the 6-7-10 split. And finishing off the second frame for Northeastern Clinton is Lori Dumas. As she leaves the 3-6-9. As Danielle goes for her spare, and she gets 2. Getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 26 after 2. And Lori Dumas chops the 2 pins off 6. Getting 9 for the frame, giving her an 18 after 2. And up for Beekmantown is Carrie Ireland as she leaves the 2-4-5 as she was on a strike. And starting things off for Beekmantown here in the third frame is Bridget Valley. As Bridget comes up a little heavy, leaving the 6-10. And Carrie Ireland picks up her spare. To get 2 marks for Beekmantown that frame. The Northeastern's 3, so Northeastern's up by 4 marks or 40 pins after 2 frames. As Bridget picks up her spare to start off the Beekmantown third frame. And Lori Duto will start the Northeastern third. And she strikes for Northeastern Clinton. To start the third frame, up for Beekmantown is Michelle Seymour. And she strikes. And up for Northeastern is Hillary Brink on a strike. And she leaves the 5-7 split.
Hey, he'll get one, anyone though.
Brings up Cammie Bell for Beekmantown as she leaves the 1-2 spare. As Hillary Brink up for Northeastern Clinton. Puts him right in between them. Getting 8 for the frame, giving her a 46. Giving her 46 after 3. As Cammie Bell goes for her spare. And she just gets 1, getting 9 for the frame. And up for Northeastern is Jess Charlin. As she leaves a 7-pin. As she's on a spare. And that's Danielle up for Beekmantown on an open. As she leaves the 4-6-7 split. That's Jess Charlin goes for her spare and converts. Getting the second mark for Northeastern Clinton that frame.
Come on, Paula.
As Danielle drops in the gutter, getting 7 for the frame, giving her a 33 after 3. Up for Northeastern is Paula Chapman on a spare. Puts right in the pocket, leaving solid 5-pin. Getting 9 on her first ball. She was on a spare.
Don't change a thing, Paul. It's a good ball.
As Carrie Ireland for Beekmantown. Comes up a little high, leaving the 4-pin.
Come on, Paula.
As Paula Chapman will pick up her 5-pin. That'll bring up Lori Dumas for Northeastern Clinton on lane 6. As Carrie Ireland will finish off the third frame for Beekmantown, and she'll miss it to the left. So Beekmantown gets 2 marks that frame. And Lori Dumas puts the ball right in the pocket and leaves the 4-pin.
You were supposed to call Jen for the second game.
As Lori Dumas will pick up her spare. As Northeastern Clinton gets 4 marks that frame to Beekmantown's 2. So Northeastern Clinton has opened up a 60-pin lead in this game. But they're still down in total pins. as Lori Dutil gets 6 on her first ball. And Bridget Valley gets 9 on her first ball, leaving the 6 pin. Lori Dumas will go after a 1-2-7-8 spare. And she'll miss it to the right. So she gets a total of 6 for the frame, giving her a 39 after 4. As Bridget will pick up her spare. We'll start off the Beekmantown 4th frame. As Hillary Brink on an open. Puts one in the pocket as she leaves the 5-8 spare. And up for Beekmantown is Michelle Seymour on a strike. And she leaves the 8 pin. Hillary Brink goes for her spare and picks it up. Yes, they'll bring up Jess Charlin for Northeastern Clinton. And Michelle Seymour going for her spare. And she'll convert. Getting the second mark for Beekmantown that frame as Jess Charlin gets 9 on her first ball, leaving the 3 pin. And that brings up Cammie Bell for Beekmantown on lane 6 on an open. Cammie leaves the 3-9 double wood. As Jess Charlin picks up her spare, as Northeastern is trying to make a comeback here. Cammie Bell goes for her spare and she'll get the front pin, leaving the back, getting 9 for the frame. And Paula Chapman up for Northeastern. Gets 6 on her first ball. She was on a spare.
Keep it going, Paula.
As Danielle gets 9 on her first ball. Paula Chapman goes for her spare and converts. And Danielle will try to do the same for Beekmantown on lane 6. And she will convert her spare. That brings up the anchor ballers for both teams. Lori Dumas in lane 5 for Northeastern Clinton. And she puts one in the pocket and carries out all 10. And up for Beekmantown is Carrie Ireland on an open. And as Carrie, ball out a little too far to the right. Came back a little bit, leaving the 2-4 spare. Northeastern Clinton got 4 marks that frame. And if Carrie Ireland spares, they will also, Beekmantown will also have 4 marks.
No, you were sleeping. We were getting our makeup on.
As Carrie Ireland spares, so 4 marks apiece for both teams. So Northeastern still holds a 60-pin lead in this game. As we start the 5th frame. And Bridget Valley up for Beekmantown as she strikes to start the 5th frame. And up for Northeastern Clinton is Lori Dutil. And she leaves the 6th pin. And up for Beekmantown is Michelle Seymour. And she strikes. So the first 2 bowlers for Beekmantown have started the 5th frame with strikes. And Lori Dutil will go for her spare. And she will convert. And up for Beekmantown is Cammie Bell. And the ball goes a little too far to the left, leaving the 1-3-6 spare. She was on an open. And up for Northeastern is Hillary Brink. And she strikes, and she was working on a spare.
Come on, Jess. Never too late, Jess. Come on now. Never too late.
And Cammie Bell goes for her spare in lane 5. And she gets 2 out of the 3, getting 9 for the frame. And up for Northeastern, it's Jess Charlotte who strikes for Northeastern Clinton on lane 6. So the first 3 bowlers for Northeastern Clinton have marks, and the last 2 have strikes. And up for Northeastern is Danielle Renadette, and she leaves the 6-7 split as she was on a spare. And up for Northeastern Clinton is Paula Chapman. And she pulls the ball to the left, getting the 7 pin.
Stop it when you're throwing the ball.
As Danielle gets 1 pin, getting 9 for the frame, giving her a 60 after 5. As Paula Chapman goes for her spare. She gets 8 for the frame, giving her a 73 after 6. Now I'll bring up the anchor bowlers for both teams. On lane 5 for Beekmantown is Carrie Ireland. She leaves the 2 pin, and up for Northeastern Clinton on lane 6 is Lori Dumas. Lori on a strike. Puts the ball right in the pocket, and she leaves the 5-7 split.
Easier to slide now, Lori.
As Carrie Ireland misses her spare, getting 9 for the frame, she has a 76 after 5, and Lori Dumas gets 1 out of the 2, getting 9 for the frame, giving her 66 after 5. So Northeastern Clinton still holds a 60-pin lead in this game. Roughly 60 pins, as Lori Dutil will start the 6th frame for Northeastern Clinton on a spare. She gets 6 on her first ball. And up for Beekmantown on lane 6 is Bridget Valley on a strike. She gets 8 on her first ball, leaving the 6-10 spare. As Lori Dutel picks up her spare to start the Northeastern 6th frame. As Bridget goes for her spare and converts, just knocking down the 10 pin. As Hillary Brink on a strike. Strike doubles up for Northeastern Clinton. A good start so far in the Northeastern 6th frame as Michelle Seymour on a strike. Ball to the left of the head pin, leaving the 1-3-6. And up for Northeastern is Jess Charlin on a strike. And she doubles up for Northeastern Clinton. So a real good start to the 6th frame for Northeastern Clinton. 2 doubles and a spare. As Michelle Seymour will try to pick up her spare. As Michelle picks up her spare. So the first 2 bowlers for Beekmantown have spared up. As Paula Chapman for Northeastern crosses over, leaving the 6 pin. Cammie Bell throws her first ball, and she leaves just the 3 pin, getting 9 on her first ball.
Yeah, she does. Yes, she did.
There's Lori Dumas. As Paula Chapman picked up her spare, Lori Dumas leaves the 4-7 split.
Huh?
Cammie Bell picks up her spare.
Thanks.
Lori Dumas picks up her spare. So Northeastern Clinton gets 7 marks that frame. And Danielle up for Beekmantown. She leaves the 5-pin split.
I always thought there was a bar or something when I got down there.
I'm not used to it. I know what I'm looking for. Huh? I don't know if it would have automatically reached that way.
As Danielle gets 9 for the frame. As Carrie Ireland will finish off the 6th frame for Beekmantown. And she leaves the 6-pin.
That's a call.
Bridget up for Beekmantown on a spare. And she leaves the 6-pin.
Go, Ricky!
As Bridget ball falls in the gutter, she gets 9 for the frame.
I think that could have been a foul. See what happened when it went down the lane on the right here? Came on.
As Carrie picks up her spare. So Beekmantown gets 4 marks that frame. So Northeastern Clinton has opened up a 90-pin lead, roughly 90 pins in this game so far, as Michelle Seymour gets 8 on her first ball. Lori Dutel strikes for Northeastern Clinton to start their 7th frame. As Michelle Seymour will go for her spare. And ball misses to the right, getting 8 for the frame. And up for Northeastern is Hillary Brink. And she gets 7 on her first ball, as she was working on a double. And up for Beekmantown is Cammie Bell. As Cammie leaves the 4-6-7 split. As Hillary misses her spare. She has to get 7 total for the frame, giving her a 117 after 7.
Come on, Jeff. Come on, Jeff.
As Cammie Bell misses all 3 pins, getting 7 for the frame. And up for Northeastern is Jess Charlin, as she leaves the 2-8, getting 8 pins on her first ball. She was also working on a double. As Danielle leaves the 4-7 spare, and Jess Charlin misses hers, getting 8 total for the frame, giving her a 132 after 7.
Come on, Paula, you can do it.
Paula Chapman up for Northeastern Clinton. Crosses over and carries out a strike. As Danielle takes out the 7-pin, getting 9 for the frame. That brings up the anchor bowlers for both teams. Carrie Ireland on lane 5 and Lori Dumas in lane 6. As Carrie Ireland leaves the 5-8 spare. And Lori Dumas on a strike. On a spare, excuse me. Strikes for Northeastern Clinton. So Northeastern Clinton gets 3 marks that frame, giving them 30 marks after 7. And Carrie Ireland finishing up Beekmantown 7th with a spare, as they have just that lone mark, giving them 19. So Northeastern has about a 110-pin lead in this game, but are still down for total pins. As Bridget leaves the 4-6 split, And Lori Dutil on a strike for Northeastern, starts off the 8th frame. And she leaves just the 8 pin.
That was a big one, too.
As Bridget goes for at least 1 pin here.
Come on, Lori, you can do it.
And she misses both of them. She gets 8 total for the frame, and Lori Dutil picks up her spare on lane 5, and that brings up Michelle Seymour for Beekmantown on lane 6.
Come on, Hill, you can do it now, Hill.
As Michelle Seymour leaves the 7-10 split. And up for Northeastern Clinton is Hillary Brink, and she strikes for Northeastern Clinton. So Northeastern Clinton making a comeback in this final game. As Michelle Seymour will try to get a pin. And she'll clip out 1, getting 9 for the frame. And up for Northeastern is Jess Charlin. She gets 7 on her first ball, leaving the 1-2-4 spare. And up for Beekmantown is Cammie Bell. And Cammie strikes for Beekmantown. Get their first mark of the 8th frame. And Jess Charlin for Northeastern Clinton spares up. She gets a spare in this 8th frame. And up for Beekmantown is Danielle on an open.
Come on, Paula, you can do it.
And she strikes for Beekmantown. And up for Northeastern Clinton is Paula Chapman on a strike. And she doubles up for Northeastern Clinton. And up for Beekmantown is Carrie Ireland as she strikes for Beekmantown. So Beekmantown gets 3 marks in the 8th frame. Lori Dumas on a strike, goes for a double. She gets 6 on her first ball.
Come on, Lori. Come on, Lori. Nice and easy. You can do it. Okay, let's go.
Lori Dumas going for her spare, big spare for Northeastern Clinton. And she gets 3 out of the 4, getting 9 for the frame. So Northeastern gets 5 marks to Beekmantown's 3. So they pick up 2 more, so they have a roughly 130 pin lead in this game. But they are roughly down about 50 pins for total. As Bridget for Beekmantown starts off the 9th frame. And she crosses over to the Brooklyn, getting a strike. And up for Northeastern lane 6 is Lori Dutil. Getting 8 on her first ball. She was working on a spare, leaving the 2-4. And up for Beekmantown is Michelle Seymour. And she leaves the 5 pin. Lori Dutil goes for her spare. And Lori Dutil picks up her spare to start off the Northeastern 9th. As Michelle Seymour goes for her 5 pin and converts. Brings up Hillary Brink for Northeastern Clinton on a strike. As she leaves the 5-8. And up for Beekmantown is Cammie Bell on a strike. As she leaves the 5 pin. As Hillary goes for her spare. And she converts. It brings up Jess Charlin for Northeastern Clinton.
She misses. She's going to punch me right in the eye.
As Cammie Bell picks up her spare. So Beekmantown starting the mark with Northeastern. And up for Northeastern is Jess Charlin. As she leaves the 3-8.
Right over the first barrel, good speed, you'll knock them both off.
Danielle up for Beekmantown on a strike. She gets 7 on her first ball, leaving the 1-3-6. Jess Charlin goes for her spare, picks them both up. So it's 3 marks so far to start the Northeastern 9th frame. Beekmantown has 3 marks as well, as Danielle goes for her spare.
Your order's ready.
And she gets 2 out of the 3, getting 9 for the frame. And Paula Chapman. Gonna cross over, and she triples for Northeastern Clinton. That brings up Carrie Ireland for Beekmantown on a strike. And she leaves a solid 10-pin. And up for Northeastern Clinton on an open is Lori Dumas. And crosses over, and she strikes. So Northeastern Clinton picks up 6 marks in that frame. As Carrie Ireland goes for her 10-pin. And she picks it up. So Beekmantown picks up 4 marks. So Northeastern Clinton has got about a 160-pin lead in this game, as Bridget gets 9 on her first ball. She's working on a strike. So this game's going to come right down to the 10th frame overall, as Lori Dutil gets 8 on her first ball, leaving the 2-9 split. Northeastern is making a comeback here in this last game, as Bridget picks up her spare to start the 10th frame off for Beekmantown. And Lori Dutil for Northeastern gets 9 for the frame, giving her a 142 game. And Lori ends up with a 355 series. And Hillary Brink, leaves the 7-pin. As Bridget puts one in the pocket, striking for Beekmantown. As she ends up with a 152. She ends up with a 428 series. As Hillary misses her spare, finishing with a 165 game. And Michelle Seymour leaves the 5-pin. As Hillary ends up with a 398 series. As Jess Charlin gets 4 on her first ball. She was on a spare.
Yes, they did.
As Michelle Seymour misses her spare, as she ends up with a 162. As Jess gets 4 more, getting 8 for the frame, giving her a 172. As Cammie Bell gets 5 on her first ball. And Michelle Seymour ends up with a 511 series, as Paula Chapman on a triple gets 9 on her first ball. As Jess Charlin ends up with a 460 series. And Cammie Bell gets 4, gets 9 for the frame, giving her a 123. Cammie ends up with a 443 series. And Paula Chapman misses their spare, finishing with a 180. As Danielle leaves the 4-6 split. And Paula ends up with a 406 series. And Lori Dumas on a strike. And she leaves the 4-6-7 split. Danielle will put them right in between, getting 8 for the frame, giving her a 114. Danielle ends up with a 423 series. 140 all over.
Come on, Lori, get two now.
And Lori Dumas finishes with a 142. As Lori ends up with a 511 series, as Carrie Ireland gets 9 on her first ball. And Carrie Ireland misses her spare. And Carrie Ireland ends up with a 510. So the Beekmantown Eagles are the CVAC girls champions. I believe they'll win by about 40 or 50 pins, somewhere in that vicinity, but a great comeback by Northeastern as they were trailing by 180 pins going into the last game, and they came back by winning that game by 130. So that's the way it happened here from Plattsburgh Lanes. Congratulations to the Beekmantown Eagles, and congratulations to Northeastern Clinton for 2 great seasons and a great last day.